How's it going, everyone? I'm Jakejames Lugo, and welcome to the channel. So most of you know I'm a big Batman fan, so it was only natural that I would play every single Batman game that's on the SEGA Genesis, one of my favorite consoles of all time. Now, I've already reviewed what I think is the best Batman game on the console, but let's dive into another one together. Let's check out Batman Forever. Wait a second, I just realized this is a Schumacher Batman. Are you kidding me? This is gonna suck, isn't it? Batman Forever is a beat-em-up style game that was released on multiple platforms in 1995. This was around the same time that the movie came out in theaters. This was all part of the massive marketing push by Warner Brothers back then, so it's no surprise to see a video game tie-in to it. While almost every platform had a version of Batman Forever, the one that I'm focusing on here is the SEGA Genesis version, which was the one that I grew up playing. Keep in mind though that a lot of what I say can be applied to every version of it. Anyway, there's not much to cover when it comes to story. If you watched Batman Forever the movie, then you know exactly what to expect. The game deviates very little from the movie, despite having a few exaggerated exceptions. Bottom line, Two-Face and the Riddler are causing havoc in Gotham City, so Batman and Robin team up to stop them. Enough said. What made Batman Forever unique amongst other games about The Dark Knight was how it borrowed the engine that was used for the Mortal Kombat series. Similar button inputs and movement, as well as visual style too. This made Batman Forever feel very different than previous Batman games that came out beforehand, ushering in something unique for a whole new era of Batman. Now, even though the game follows the events of the movie very closely, sometimes one for one in some instances, there are a couple places in the game that you go to that you don't see in the movie. They're only mentioned in passing. Two of those places are both the prison that Two-Face breaks out of at the very start of the game, as well as also the subway, which feels like a random level just thrown in there just to stretch things out. You don't really see that in the movie, and it just feels very random in the game. Now, one thing I do want to say about the digitized graphics is that they haven't really aged all that well. This is very similar to the Mortal Kombat series, which I feel like did it much better and has kind of lasted better throughout the ages. However, in Batman Forever, it feels very rushed, it looks very blasé compared to other games out there that have done something very similar, but also, even though it makes it different than other Batman games, it just, again, hasn't aged all that well. It just doesn't look that great by today's standards. And speaking of Mortal Kombat, Batman Forever borrowed the engine of Mortal Kombat, so it plays very similar in a lot of different ways, for better or worse. For anybody who hasn't seen or played this game before, Batman Forever plays like a platformer version of Mortal Kombat. However, this doesn't turn out for the best. You can play alone and control either Batman or Robin, or you could team up with a friend as the dynamic duo. Yet both characters play exactly the same, with the only differences being the gadgets you can use in each stage. Yeah, I should say that's a thing here too. You get to pick which of Batman's gadgets to bring with you before entering a level. Besides that, you have high and low punches and kicks, which feels exactly like classic Mortal Kombat. The biggest problems about this come from how stiff the controls feel and how awkward it could be moving through each stage. Seriously, I'm not even kidding when I say how it could be annoying to time your jumps and use the grapple hook to ascend to higher areas. Everything is just difficult and feels weighted down. You'll get into fights with all types of thugs as you progress, but good luck trying to do any combos in here. Only 2 enemies can appear on the screen at a time, and if you find yourself getting sandwiched between them, you're in for a real world of hurt. What makes this so frustrating is how quickly the computer can read your moves and counter just about everything you do. It's the same thing that you see in the Mortal Kombat games with the CPU's godlike reactions. This often makes later sections of Batman Forever feel borderline cheap, with a few boss fights that become nearly unplayable unless you find a way to abuse the game's broken mechanics. There's another huge problem here. There's so many bugs and glitches that show up. You could breeze through some levels with no problem at all, while others you'll have a hard time hitting a brick wall of difficulty and unfairness. Seriously, it's all over the place with this game. Look at this one example where I took down a major boss using the most ridiculous and kinda cheap of tactics. To say that the combat and the gameplay of Batman Forever is very inconsistent and really kind of rushed together is a huge understatement. There's just so many things that are wrong with it, not only in terms of balance, just in effectiveness of some of the moves and things you could do that just make the game difficult and very annoying and frustrating. One of my biggest problems related to this is that some of the moves that should be effective, that should do a lot of damage, aren't really that helpful, or really at least the ones that are supposed to be helpful, you have to be in like certain positions and certain scenarios to really utilize them to the best of your ability, and you're not always going to be set up for that. Like certain moves like a grab, just for whatever reason, the computer will just uppercut you or just do whatever move and completely prevent you from doing so when you feel like you should actually have that opportunity. It makes the game a little bit more difficult than what it actually needs to be, sometimes borderlining on unfair and really like annoying and frustrating to the point like you'll lose a bunch of lives for like almost no reason sometimes. The other thing I should mention is that there's almost no reason to pick Robin if you're playing solo as compared to Batman, because both characters play almost the exact same, they have the exact same types of abilities, rather than just the gadgets that are unique to them. But even those are just, you know, they act very similar. At least there's nothing too special about them that makes it radically different or better to play either Batman or Robin when you're playing solo. On top of that, as if things couldn't get any worse, if you're playing co-op with a friend and you're playing as Batman and Robin, you know, or Robin and Batman, whatever have you, it almost becomes a little bit more difficult to do that compared to when you're playing solo, because certain areas as you're trying to move around makes it very difficult to move with the camera. I don't know why this is the case. Like, you would think that things should be a little bit more easier when you're playing with a friend, but that's not really the case with Batman and Robin. Could be at least an indication of the engine that they're using from the Mortal Kombat games, but I don't know why, it just makes it more annoying, more frustrating, and a lot less fun. And speaking of losing a lot of lives very quickly, there are certain stages in this game which almost feels like it sets you up for a trap. It just sets you up to like be treated very unfairly. Like for example, like in the second stage, you're on this like train car and you're like fighting a whole bunch of enemies and stuff, and you could just fall off and lose a life immediately. I'm telling you right now, you could lose at least 3 to 4 lives if you're not careful, or at least if you're not aware of where your positioning is at. And the computer gets really cheap with this, where it tries to throw you off the cart, and it's just like, okay, like that really sucks. You could end up going from like 9 lives all the way down to 1 or 0, or even get a game over, even for just like one mistake. Granted, you could do the same thing to enemies as well, but it just ends up being very frustrating. It just sets you up for failure in like the most cheapest and most annoying of ways. And the crazy thing is that there's stuff like that throughout the entirety of the game. Not just in the very beginning of it, but like in multiple stages, you'll find stuff like that. And it's just like, okay now, like this is just super cheap. They're clearly doing this just to make you play the game a little bit longer. But outside of all that stuff, let's talk about some of the other content that Batman Forever has, because believe it or not, there is some extra content, but it's not really all that good. There's very little to Batman Forever aside from the main game. You could use cheats to mess around with level select and a few other things that might offer a little bit of fun. There's also hidden blueprints to find in later stages, which unlock new gadgets for you to use. But these really aren't worth the trouble of finding them all. The game doesn't tell you how to use them, or what their command inputs are when you gather the blueprints necessary to unlock them. Also, there isn't a new Game Plus feature where you could use all of the gadgets you unlock throughout the game, so it's kinda pointless. At some point, I just ended up using the cheats to see how each of the blueprint gadgets worked, and to be honest, most of them kinda suck. Another thing is how the Riddler clues you pick up aren't always clear on what you need to do. Unless you look things up online beforehand with a guide, you'll have a hard time finding all the secrets within every stage. By the way, can we also talk about how the final boss is very weird and stupid? Seriously, when the heck did the Riddler get a power suit? I'm not even kidding, when did this happen in the movie? Don't believe me? Look at this stupidity right here. Something else I should mention is the training mode in the menus. This is basically a tournament mode where you could fight the CPU opponents or another player. It takes place in the Batcave, so that's pretty cool. But once you finish all the fights or defeat all of the opponents that are put in front of you, there's nothing more to do beyond that. It's neat for a quick distraction, but you don't get anything from playing through it. Overall, Batman Forever just feels like a lame movie tie-in game that doesn't do much to build up hype for the movie. It's kinda lackluster. It would have been far more interesting having the ability to save your game and then offer the main game to multiple playthroughs, gathering all the different blueprints and taking them into training mode. That would have been actually really cool. But as is right now, Batman Forever is really lackluster, and it kind of sucks not being able to do that. I mean, seriously, there's almost no point in gathering any of the blueprints in any of the stages, because by the time you find the ones that are at least somewhat useful, the game is practically over, or at least you're getting a game over at that point, and that really sucks. And here's the crazy part too, by the time you finish the main game and you get to the end credits, there's almost no payoff for this. You get a really crappy, like, congratulations screen, which feels very indicative of like an era long past in gaming. There's almost no payoff to this. There's like no reward, there's no bonuses, there's nothing interesting or cool that you get from finishing the main game, and it feels like a real cop-out here. Maybe this is indicative of just rushing everything together to put it out for the movie's release, but again, there's so many other movie-based games that have not only a better payoff at the end, but feel a lot more better designs, compared to what we're getting here at Batman Forever. It's just, again, super disappointing, super whack. It just feels like a big pile of bat crap, if I'm being totally honest. So to bring everything together, can I recommend that you guys check out Batman Forever on the SEGA Genesis or any platform for that matter? Absolutely not. This game is horrible. It's probably one of the worst Batman games I have ever played. It really is that bad, that terribly put together. There's so many things wrong with it, so many things that are frustrating, and just make the game overall not fun to play through. It's cool that we got a movie tie-in game with the film's release. That's always kind of cool, especially if there's some good elements to it. But what we got here for Batman Forever compared to like Batman Returns or the original Batman 89, what we got here is just utter garbage. It really is a big pile of bat crap. That's just the absolute best way to put it. There's like almost no reason to play this game. It's just really that bad. It hasn't aged well. It's an archaic relic of its time. Anyway, my cool people, those are my honest thoughts about Batman Forever. This game is just horrible. I wanted to be real with you guys, again, as a Batman fan or just a fan of good video games, even movie tie-in games, because I know there's some good ones out there, but this one is just utter trash, Like, it's just really that bad. But, in the sea of all these good games that we get every once in a while, there's bound to be one that's a real dud. But as always, with any game that I talk about here, those are just my thoughts about it. Let me know what you guys think about this game down below in the comment section. Tell me, are you a big fan of the Batman series or any of the Batman games that have come out? Do you like Batman Forever, even though you'd be straight up wrong? I mean, what are some of your favorite Batman games out there? At least, maybe not ones based on the movies, maybe any sort of Batman or superhero game out there. Tell me some of your favorites down below in the comments section. I'm curious to see what you guys are going to bring up. Thanks for watching this video, everyone. Go ahead and click the boxes on the side to see more videos and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to go visit my Patreon page for exclusive gaming content that I know you'll really love. Hope you have a chill day. Peace out and stay epic, everybody.